Blitz is defined as a sudden, savage attack. It is indeed all this. The effect is sure. The premise is simple. It's a basic, primal confrontation, man to man. No excuses are offered. None accepted.
Welcome to the latest edition of Longhorn Blitz with horns247.com.
Looks like a radio station.
Now, here are your hosts, lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers,
Pure athlete yet. Transcend race, hombre.
Matt Butler,
I don't talk, man. I back it up.
And we are chock full of that, man.
All right.
and Jeff Howe.
It's still real to me, damn it.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
If you're gonna blitz, come strong, but don't come at all.
Coming strong. Happy signing day, everybody. National Signing Day all across America and on the 40 acres. It is Tom Herman's first recruiting class. And we're going to do it different this year because we're doing it live. You guys that are listening to the podcast will get it in your normal ways, whether you're an iTunes subscriber, am1300thezone.com. You go to Horns 24/7. But if you're on Facebook Live on the Horns 24/7 Facebook page, this podcast is live, a special National Signing Day edition of Longhorn Blitz with horns247.com. I am Jeff Howe, and let me bring in the rest of the team because we got a lot to get to, no time to waste. The master of the soundboard, the drop machine extraordinaire, the man behind the glass, the man, the myth, the legend, Matt Butler, pushing the buttons.
Yes,
back
sir.
there. How's it going?
Oh, pretty well, man. I got a smile on my face whenever I looked in the studio and saw the yellow working pad. Like, Jeff is hard at work.
Man.
If Jeff has that thing out, that means normally you're at a pro day or, like, he has been going from different road trip to road trip. I never see that out. When I saw that out, I was like, uh-oh, we're going to get some stuff. He got info.
What I did was,
At least he's organized.
we'll do this. I took, Matt, your bust rate,
Yes.
basically the framework of it, right? And did my
Explain
own.
bust rate so we aren't talking about breasts.
Right. It's just the bust rate. Matt gave me a great
size.
barometer to define it in a recruiting class. It's basically
Yeah.
you got nothing out of that scholarship.
Yes.
You basically wasted the scholarship.
Yeah.
With all due respect to the young men, you basically wasted.
Yeah,
it.
we're analyzing the
Right.
performances.
So, Rod, you can look at my color-coded chart, man. I
Ah.
broke it down by
Show the camera.
NFL rate, significant contributors, guys that were like multiple year starters but
Mhm.
didn't make it to the NFL, like a Chris Hall, a Steve Edmonds, somebody like that in that
Yeah.
category. Minimal contributors, maybe you started some games,
Ah.
but you got injured or something happened.
I
but
like
you,
that.
you did something,
A
right?
little
You
bit
got
more
like
details.
instead of being that 30 to 70%, it looks
Yeah.
like you had categorized the sort of above average
Right.
and then the other. I like it.
Even like a Dorian McCullough would fall in the minimal contributors category.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
And then busts, like we talked about. You just got nothing. So, Rod, you can see
All right.
I've got my green. I got green boxes. I got red boxes. I got all kinds of stuff. I got
No,
all
I like
kinds of
that.
bust rates and all kinds of different
It's
charts.
just more
and-
expansive on
Yeah.
the research Matt already
I
did.
like it.
It's more, a
Getting
little bit
in
more
depth.
expansive. I like it.
A
Yeah.
modern
Max.
version of 2.0. You're updating it.
If by
So you gotta-
expansive you mean
gotta
I lost my
You
damn
gotta
mind.
update the
and-
theory.
Yes.
Yeah, like a beautiful mind.
Oh, you
It
do the same
happens.
thing. Like your Belichickian theory is always evolving, or you have your rankings every single year and
Yeah.
different type of. You always got
Exactly.
new information.
Gotta update. You gotta update your
Analyze
theories
them
and
facts.
philosophies. Exactly.
So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk nothing
Mm.
but National Signing Day. Texas has its recruiting class. We're waiting on one right now as we record this podcast. Jordan Pouncey, the wide receiver out of Winter Park, Florida, in the Orlando area, is set to now he's going to commit on Twitter via a video that he releases. So we're actually waiting for the video to be released right now.
That's some groundbreaking stuff.
Oh,
Once
the power away from the
once
people.
Jordan Pouncey is done, the Texas class is done. Now I'm expecting this to be Texas, but we shall see what happens. As of right now, the Texas recruiting class, according to 24/7 Sports, and we base ours off the 24/7 Sports composite rankings, 17-member class, currently 26th nationally. Now, why is it 26th and not higher? Because Texas missed on a couple of targets. Stephon Xavier, the offensive tackle out of Westlake, committed to UCLA. That's not as big of a loss as you would think. Yes, he's a good prospect, but Texas ideally wanted 2 offensive linemen in this class.
Mhm.
You think about this, Rod, Matt, we talk about this all the time, and you guys know I harp on adding talent and depth to the offensive line as much as you can, given the quandary Texas found itself in really over the last decade. In the 2015 and 2016 classes, Texas took 10 high school offensive linemen. So if you add 2, that's 12 in a 3-year period. That averages out to my average. I like taking in the 3 to 4 range every year.
Yeah.
So that averages out nicely. And we haven't seen, Patrick Hudson, JP Urquidez, Tope Amade, guys like that. We really haven't seen Gene DeLance or Denzel Okafor. So a lot of young talent on the offensive line. Not making excuses for Texas missing on Stephon Xavier, but offensive line is not a major concern.
No.
The one that really, really stings is losing out on Caleb Chase, on the talented edge rusher out of Galena Park, North Shore. Could have been, the Arden Key type guy. If you look at Arden Key at LSU, one of those type edge rushers. Caleb Chase could have been that guy. Instead, he is headed to LSU. And that, all is fair in recruiting, man. It's like karma coming back on you. Texas swiped Eric Fowler at the last minute last year, and now LSU comes in and takes Caleb Chase on. But, Rod, I want to start with this because, as always, and I'm not picking on Texas fans here, but a lot of Texas fans have lost their minds this morning. And Tom Herman's not worth the damn recruiting, and this is all just terrible and horrible, and the sky's falling. I had a take on the site this morning, even before all this started, that Tom Herman, regardless of the outcome today, can't be judged justly based on this year's class, based on the results on signing day. You can't say, he's not worth the damn as a recruiter. Likewise, you can't say, man, this guy's great. He just can make it rain, and we're just getting great prospects and great classes from here on out. The problem I see is there's too many people trying to do the apples and oranges comparison. Like, well, Charlie Strong, look what he did in his first class and what the results were in time. You got to remember, Charlie Strong came into a Texas job that was coming off of what we thought was a really bad year at Texas, which was 8-5. Well, there was a time where we thought 8-5 was like rock bottom.
Yeah.
Tom Herman is taking over Texas when it really did hit rock bottom. When you lose to Kansas and you miss out on a bowl game because of it, that's as bad as it gets on the 40. And I'm not making excuses for Tom Herman. I'm just saying I think this is a wake-up call to everybody that the Texas brand is not what it once was. If you still think that somehow somebody's just going to wave a magic wand and Texas is going to start winning 10, 11 games and being in playoff contention and competing for Big 12 championships, that's not going to happen. It's going to take – the program didn't get bad overnight. It didn't get to this point overnight, and it's not going to get back to a championship level overnight. If it does, great, but you point to teams like Auburn in 2013, TCU in 2014. Those are the exceptions to the rule. This is going to be a process. It's going to take time. Yes, there is talent on the 40, but Rod, the way it sits right now, Texas is no longer – I think it's twofold. Number one, I think everybody should realize what an elite recruiter Charlie Strong is when he's got a full cycle to work and how good he is at closing the deal. That's number one. That's how you get back-to-back top 10 classes with losing records. The second thing is, I think when you look at Tom Herman and the task he's got in front of him, you can rearrange the pitch. You can do whatever you want. This program's got to start winning some football games. You can't sell hopes and dreams and what-ifs anymore. That's not a luxury Tom Herman has. Remember, we talked all the time, guys, about how Charlie Strong was a coach who, at the beginning, carried himself like he had the luxury of time. Tom Herman doesn't have the luxury of being able to sell Texas on just the Texas brand. That's not going to get it done. He's got to get to September and start winning some football games to see the results translate into the recruiting realm. Guys, I'll open the floor, guys. Any thoughts y'all have, go right ahead.
I mean, it's a lot to chew on, and you made a lot of really good points. I will say that and I think Tom Herman's a really smart guy. He's Mensa. He understands this, and I've been saying this for a long time. One of my theories about the state of Texas in terms of recruiting is that it's changed so dynamically and so rapidly in the last 7 years that it'll never be what it once was. Longhorn fans are still clinging to kind of how, those Mac Brown days of recruiting. And Mac Brown basically was a dictator that ruled the state and got all the top players from the state. And it was unbelievable. And much like a dictator in some third world country, when he lost the stranglehold on the state, you saw all these different factions come take over the state. He ruled he sat on the Iron Throne in terms of recruiting. And we had never seen anything like it now looking back before that in terms of recruiting and modern recruiting in the state of Texas. And I don't think we'll ever see anything like it again.
No.
Because he lost that stranglehold, once he did that, there was a different Power 5 team, and even with U of H with Tom Herman, that could they could lay claim to being the best football program in the state of Texas. And once that started to happen, once it was TCU and Baylor and A&M, then U of H, once that started to happen, now, hell, it's like Game of Thrones. Like, it's the most competitive recruiting state in the country. And I'm not even talking about the SEC and the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and, and all them coming in to poach all the really good kids. I'm not even getting to that. That's a different discussion. So I think what Longhorn fans they have to kind of change. I think the Charlie Strong factor is big too. Charlie Strong was an elite recruiter, but I think now Tom Herman came in realizing, man, I got to, because of the brand thing too, because of the diminishing of the brand, I got to change my whole philosophy. And he is doing it. I think he's looking more toward 2018 than 2017, which is smart because he didn't even have most of his staff assembled when it was, time to, when the fit hit the shan, if you will, during recruiting season. But I think he's also banking that he can win a lot of games the first season. Yeah. And that's what the 2018 push, I think, is all about, to kind of bring the brand back and have it trending in the right direction. But he told Alex Loeb on Longhorn Network that Texas has to recruit like Iowa State now. A Longhorn fan saw that and was like, "Whoa, that's crazy." Not really when you think about it. He's talking about a new approach in terms of a wider net casting for Texas. Yes, that means out-of-state recruiting because in-state is not guaranteed, at least not right now, at what it used to be. That means a ton more offers, period. He's, more like Nick Saban and more like Urban Meyer. So he's changing the recruiting approach, but I think he's also adjusting to a new era of recruiting as a Power 5 school in the state of Texas. It's unbelievable how quickly it's changed. And there used to be no natural recruiting rivals to Texas in the state. Now Texas recruits against Baylor, Texas recruits against TCU, Texas recruits against U of H. That there used to be a hierarchy. There's no more hierarchy anymore. That is dead.
Yes, and everything that Texas remembers, I mean, it's always evolved from back to the pre-scholarship limits of Royal to the modern with Mac. But think about whenever Mac took over, and his first class really was the fact that he retained Ricky. He gained himself momentum. To get the Sims
Heisman.
class. To get you go forward after that and see the classes that were to follow, then it gets that momentum going. Well, look at Charlie. He was a guy that was able to, because of his good recruiting style, be able to seize momentum and sort of just create it and get it going. The thing is Texas has lost because they haven't developed the players that they've evaluated. We're talking about right now, not getting players and wishing that we had the two coaches that you run out of town saying how good of talent they brought in and how good, yes, the landscape's changed. It's changed immensely. Yet, the thing is Texas was getting those good players and not performing. So the fact that it's recruiting, yes, we have to talk about the recruiting aspect, but in the program world, you would love to get your cherry picking of players, but you're only going to get those 20, 25 scholarships. So you got to be able to evaluate and then be able to develop them better. And it's such an inexact science that we talk about that you don't know anything about these guys right now. Now you can project the best baselines to be the best because you have these tools, but there's a lot more to it. And look at the players that we've seen develop. And we've been talking about underachieving big stars for a decade almost. You look at the players that have turned into something. They're players that were the smaller, lower level recruits. Not to say that these guys will become that. It's just when you look at where you're at right now, you should focus more about the 4 years when they're on campus and worry about that. That's going to decide anybody's outcome. Now, you're going to help yourself out if you get those stars or if you can start winning to be able to get those stars the way Mac did. But I think being so overwhelmed by just a ranking system of players that the coaches and all of them will admit right now that a lot of guys are coming in and there's a lot more to be had going forward. So you can be a little worried that it didn't go as well or wasn't as excitable as it's been in the past, yet you still really don't know because you got Herman hoping that he was different than those previous coaches that will be able to develop them when they get on campus, and that's where you're at right now.
Yeah, and two things. I think people are, and Jeff brought it up too, we really are underestimating how good of a recruiter that Charlie Strong was.
Yeah.
And Longhorn fans are missing that. Now, it's almost like
because you had Mac before, too.
It was exactly, normal. Right? So I think in that aspect,
Even
he was not an elite and even McAfee before that. It's almost hard to be I always say it's hard to be a bad recruiter at a blue blood.
Yeah.
Like I mean, you almost gotta, you almost have to be really, really bad to be a bad recruiter at a blue
Right.
blood. You know what I mean? But I think people are you brought up the exciting factor, like that, the excitability. Charlie Strong was big about that too. Remember the big push on signing day, the drama. You know what I mean?
That's like puffing your chest out, but then not living up to
I think it always paid off for Texas in the Charlie Strong era. And so I think Longhorn fans are kind of they're still missing that, and I think they're also missing how good of a recruiter Charlie Strong is. It's like when you break up with a girl you knew you should have broken up with. You knew y'all did not belong together, but one aspect of the relationship was really good, and you miss it. Like she was a great cook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The sex was really good. You know what I mean? Like damn, she was toxic for me, but man, that cooking was really, really good. And that's what about Charlie. That's what we miss right now about Charlie. He wasn't a great coach for Texas. Obviously, go look at the record, but he was a hell of a recruiter. And that means the 2013, like sorry, not 2013, the red shirts from last year, 2016. I mean, basically those guys end up being added to these classes anyway in the end.
Exactly.
I mean, they're treated like that because they're first-year players coming in with this 2017 class, and we forgot about those. There were a lot of guys we were really excited about in that 2016 class that ended up redshirting.
Yeah, and we did talk about how good the previous classes were. Those guys are still on campus, so now you can get a mix of the talent with the guys that Herman wanted to be able to bring in his first class.
Yeah. The dynamic too is different, and again, it's comparing apples and oranges. It's not an apples to apples comparison. When you look at what Charlie Strong had to finish off from Mac Brown in that 2014 class, which let me find my 14 class data.
I love how this is how I keep my notes, and that's how Jeff keeps his notes. One's a better system than the other.
23 signees in that class, and there were 18 guys in the boat when Charlie took the job, so the class was almost finished.
Yeah.
And you look at what Charlie Strong added, and if you remember, guys, Alex Anderson, Poona Ford, Chris Nelson, Elijah Rodriguez, Blake Whiteley, and I guess I'm sorry, that would be 17 because Edwin Freeman would have been 6. Other than Ed Freeman, which Ed Freeman was a nice player, but we thought he's a guy that's going to have to transition from safety to linebacker. He's going to need some time. And I remember, if you guys remember, getting Poona Ford and Chris Nelson, it was more relief than celebration because Texas didn't have any defensive tackles committed at the time.
It was a necessity.
And, you needed defensive tackles because you had Trey Leali Matafau, who ended up getting booted out of LSU, and Zakoven Henderson, who's actually turned out to be a really nice player at A&M. Those were your defensive tackles. Both those guys bailed. So you just needed guys, and it was like, okay, well, you almost didn't really, no disrespect to Poona Ford or Chris Nelson, you just really didn't care how good they were. It's just, okay, you got two able bodies that can play the position. Great. We'll figure out the rest later. You got some depth in the pipeline finally. But that wasn't a finish that got anybody excited. I don't think anybody was really excited about the finish. This class, where I see this class, this 2017 class, the 2014 class being similar, is this. When you look back at 14 and you think about the guys Texas could have had in that class, you think about what if Jamal Adams, Solomon Thomas, two guys that are probably going to go really high in the draft here in a couple months, and the other guys that they could have had in that class, you think, man, how much better would that roster have been? How much better would things have been for Charlie? But then again, if it's like a conversation we're having now. Well, if Texas was in a position to get those guys, Charlie's not the coach.
It's a salvage class.
Yes.
Those are tough classes, man. The salvage classes are tough.
Yeah, those used to be, until recent years, you would never even blame the new coach for that class because the recruiting cycle didn't go to the end like this.
Tom Herman had 14 spots, really up to 14 spots to fill. That's a lot to do and not that much time. And again, I'm not making excuses for the guy.
No, these are just facts about the situation.
You've got to lean on whatever relationships you have. And I wrote about this week. Tom Herman talked about relationships. People are like, well, he's got relationships with these kids from U of H. And I'm like,
flip 3 of them, I believe.
That's really all you have, Rod. You don't have anything else. Yeah. If you vetted those guys and evaluated those guys and feel like those guys
those guys were Power 5 players that can play at the next level.
Exactly. Yeah. You're not. Look, here's the deal. Yes, you're at the University of Houston, but Rod, you and I talk about this all the time from the time we were doing this podcast. When U of H still, they were kind of on the uptick under Sumlin when we started doing this podcast. I think Sumlin's first year at A&M was probably the first year we did this show. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, 2012.
Right. But the conversations we would have were, man, U of H should be a 10-11 win team every year and to be in that mix, to be like a Boise, because there's too much talent in and around the city of Houston that you should be able to win with what's in your backyard.
No doubt.
Remember what opening week against Oklahoma?
Right. So the bottom line is, if you've evaluated these players and you feel like they're good, and look, our national staff at 24/7 Sports went back and looked at guys like Marquez Bimage, went back and looked at guys like Daniel Young and Reese Lato, and are like, wow, Texas actually made really good evaluations with these guys. No, you're not bumping them up to like top 100 guys in the country, but you bump up a guy from a low 3-star to like a high 3-star. That's a pretty significant climb. The point I'm making is, like you said, Rod, you put the perfect label on this class. It was a salvage class. You just said, okay, what do we need to fill, and where can I go get it?
Yep, it's about needs. That's why kickers and
You know,
that was it was a need, and
Right.
he filled it early. The needs he filled early on. That's how you knew he had a plan.
typically with the recruiting class, and I have no issue saying who told me. Jerry Hamilton one time told me the perfect kind of rationale for a recruiting class. How you think about it? You got to fill two needs. There's two things. If you had a successful recruiting class, you did these two things. Is the talent level in your program better because of this class? Number one.
Yeah.
And number two, all the holes you needed to fill in recruiting, when you started the cycle, you said we need whatever it is.
We need a kicker.
2 corners.
We need running
three
backs.
offensive linemen. Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is, which is tight ends.
Did you fill those holes with guys who can eventually start for you?
Yeah.
Those two questions can't be conclusively answered with this class right now. Last year's class, yeah, especially after you had the 4 guys from Baylor during the summer, because those guys took care of whatever holes were left over. This is a class for a couple reasons. One, because you took some guys that are more kind of projectable upside guys, they're not going to contribute right away. Second thing is, with the way your roster's constructed, you don't need these guys to contribute right away.
Yeah. Except at a couple of positions, maybe.
Like, Texas can't be a young team forever, right?
Maybe. Yeah.
We can't sit here every year and say, "Oh, they're young."
Unless all your upperclassmen suck and they're constantly replacing them, which is very bad.
Yes.
Yeah, but it can happen if that is the case.
Hopefully, we're not talking about.
Well, there are a lot of guys who took steps back last year.
Right.
Exactly.
Lost those
So we
starting jobs.
could, but yes, it's always bad if that's the case.
It's not totally unbelievable.
This will be a veteran team in 2017, so you're not going
Either
to
way,
need.
yeah.
You're not going to need a lot of these guys to contribute. I really think this is a class that it's not going to be highly rated. It's not going to be very highly thought of. People are going to, and rightfully so. Look, the reason why the Chase on thing stings so bad is because Todd Orlando recruited this guy for like a year. Tom Herman recruited this guy for a year when they were at U of H. U of H was one of his top 2 or 3 schools. So that's why it hurts, is you had a relationship with an elite guy, a difference maker, a guy that helps you win championships.
And then you went to a job that should have helped you forge that relationship or cultivate it even more. Yeah.
You can't sugarcoat that.
And we got Orgeron.
Yeah, you got Orgeron.
What I'm saying is, you can separate the two. You can say, yes, this was a trend. You can point out the mistakes and things the staff could have done different, while at the same time recognizing this is a transition class and this should not be a referendum on Tom Herman and his staff and their ability to recruit in terms of rendering a verdict.
Yeah. No, but I think Longhorn fans are there well within their right if they don't like how sexy the class, the lack of sex appeal with the class. They want to do that. That's fine. Because I agree with you. I think it was about needs. It was like, all right, let's fill the needs. What do we need? I don't need a kicker. We need a running back. We need tight ends. Boom, boom, boom. We talked about that. And you got Sam Mellinger in the class. You needed to, further try to cultivate the quarterback position, try to bring it along, try to keep it healthy, keep the program out of quarterback hell where it had been for 5-6 years prior to Shane Buechele coming in. And I think he obviously keeping Sam Mellinger was big, and he did that.
Yeah,
and Sam Mellinger, honestly, he wasn't going nowhere anyway. Hell, I mean, I could have been named the coach at Westlake, and I could have been named the coach at Texas, and he didn't win. I mean, he wanted to be a Longhorn his entire life.
As I said, Moncrief could have been burning down, and some janitors are screwing up the ashes, and Sam Mellinger saying, "Hey, where do I sign?"
Yeah, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who was going to be the head coach there. But so I think the needs are taken care of. it's a salvage class.
And
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
that
the way it
makes
goes.
sense when you look at it that way. If you say you have a couple months, you have 14 scholarships, you have areas of need. Now, it would be great to be able to go after all these big guys and be able to, try to get some guys to flip and come over, but you also risk not getting what you need. And if you can fill those needs and then hope you can cherry pick a few, it sounds like you lose out on Randall. But still, if you can get those needs to at least make something like how we were comparing the previous classes to where you don't have any busts here, just make sure that you get college contributors on your very first class, get these guys to come in and help with the talent that's already there, build that little foundation just sort of to sustain until you can get some type of momentum the way. Now, the Mac Grant with Texas fans remember that Mac Brown, Ricky Williams season, and then it just immediately turned on, and recruiting really has been on since. So it's going to be tough to seize that type of momentum because we talked about how the Joneses have caught up, or the Johnsons have caught up to the Joneses now, and now is even tougher of a time to get back in that game. And the way that it isn't necessarily as localized as recruiting has been in the past, it really doesn't matter. It seems like these kids are individuals. Everything can be seen everywhere. You have TV, you have all the eyeballs. So it's going to be tougher to be able to get the potent classes. But as long as you can develop and evaluate, that's really what it all comes down to at the end.
Hey Rod, real quick, I want to go over something real quick because I was doing some in the middle of doing research.
Throw it out
I
there.
found this article over the weekend. It was when Corey Redding committed to Texas.
Nice.
January 21st, 1999 is the date line.
Where'd you find that from? That's
just
old school right there, man.
I was just reading because I was looking for I was doing a signing day deal, like big signing day events. It was the lead up to 99 Max Big Finish with Sims and Redding, like the couple days before signing day. And I start reading this story from the Tucson Citizen, and I get about I get about halfway down, and what do I find? Texas also pried away defensive back Roderick Babers of Houston Lamar from the Cats. Apparently, Arizona was one of your top schools.
I love reporting in Tucson. Did you ever speak to Arizona?
Hold on. Babers canceled his visit to UA last weekend, picking UT Tuesday.
Was that when your dad told you that?
It is unknown whether Babers' commitment had any influence on Redding. Now, this is a quote from you, Rod. Quote, "I don't mess with Corey Redding," Babers told the Houston Chronicle. "He's a big guy, so to be calling up and bothering him, that's something I don't plan on doing."
I love that.
That probably is a call. You really official visit to UA? I don't remember that actually.
So we can retroactively call BS on this rumor and innuendo. Rod B taking it official to Arizona.
I want to say.
Do you remember giving a quote to a Tucson?
No, this was from the Houston Chronicle.
Okay, cool.
I was from the Houston Chronicle.
Committed, yeah.
Okay,
that makes
the
more
quote
sense.
was. The quote was.
Oh, the quote was. I'm talking about the.
Yeah, Tucson paper got your U of A visit.
Interesting. Okay, I do think
You
I
wanted to go
remember
out to
being
the
recruited
Arizona?
heavily, but I wonder if Coach Aquino was there then.
I think you might. That could have been.
Where did Coach
Roots.
Aquino come from? Did he come from
Was
Arizona?
he at UW at that point?
I don't think he was at Arizona then. It was early '90s, but I mean, he has roots there.
He might have been at UW.
That's awesome.
I'm trying to figure out where he came from.
No, man, Dwayne Aquino was the DB's coach at Arizona.
Yeah,
there you go. So
he
had
it
eyes
then.
on you.
That was it then. Yeah, he liked Rod Beasy.
Dwayne Aquino went to Washington. That's why I got Dwayne Aquino.
Okay, that might have been it then. I gotta go check with Aquino and see if he did recruit me.
See, man, Dwayne Aquino even back then knew he wanted Rod
That's
B
wild.
in the secondary.
That might be, but that's relationships. You were just talking about that. Like literally, that's how it happens. That's how it works. I mean, not that he would. I mean, he would.
But that's the story that
but,
Hodges Mitchell told us. Remember when Hodges Mitchell was talking to Mac Brown about committing and wanting to be in the baby blue and all that, and then it's Mac Brown finally said, "Well, are you going to grow old in the state of Texas?" He's like, "Yeah." "Well, you going to grow up? You have your family in the state of Texas?" He's like, "Well, you might want to go to Texas." And then he didn't know 6 months later, Mac Brown was his head coach at Texas.
All right, gentlemen, let's go ahead and talk about this class. Rod, when you
Blast
look
from
at
the
this
past.
class, you look at the names. Does anything stand out to you? Or what stands out to you? Who stands out to you? Kind of give me the Rod Babers 30,000 foot view.
Other than the Sam Ellinger, are we doing that?
Well, obviously, I mean,
Sam Ellinger is that's the crown.
Right.
That's the crown jewel of this class. It really is. I mean, that's why I think Longhorn fans are like, I don't think all of them are that upset. He is the highest ranked guy in the class. And you know what? I want to say that in the modern era of recruiting rankings, which is the last 15 years then?
Since 2002, really.
You know, I mean, I know you guys go back pretty far in your composite rankings. Texas has never had a a player ranked as low as their top ranked player
Right.
is the lowest it's ever been this season in their recruiting class, which is Samuel at like 136. Like they've always had a player ranked higher than 136 or whatever he is.
I swear we will get off the negative here in just a minute, but I want to run this down.
Yeah, like they've always had somebody higher than that.
I want to list off the schools before you.
And I want to say they've always had a top 10 player, right?
Right, and the
And they
24
didn't have a top 10 player this
in the
year.
24/7
yeah.
Sports Composite ranking, Sam Ehlinger is the number 20 prospect in the state of Texas.
Okay,
He's
yeah.
the highest ranked Texas commit. I want to read you off the schools of the guys where they're going. Marvin Wilson, we'll find out later today.
Oh, this is good.
The late buzz is Florida State or LSU for Marvin Wilson.
That's
Okay,
Brew.
I'm just
That's
gonna
Tim Brewster over there.
run down the schools, not the players, and where they've signed to. Ohio State, Stanford, Ohio State, LSU, Ohio State, LSU, A&M, Notre Dame, Texas Tech, Alabama, LSU, TCU, USC, Oklahoma, Stanford, Michigan, and Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
That's how far down you got to go. That's how many schools you got to go through before you find the first Texas commit among the in-state ranked prospects.
And that sounds like
Man, hold
out-of-state
up.
numbers are just
How
out of control.
many? Yeah,
But that's what I was saying
it's
about
worse.
recruiting
It's
these
worse
days.
than anybody ever predicted. They thought like it was gonna be like, I don't know, 40% of like the top 300 recruits or something that were gonna leave the state. Hell, I think it's more than that now.
Texas
I think
has
it's more than that in
three of the
2017.
top 25 in the state. The three of the top 25, but Ehlinger at 20, Damian Miller at 23, Tennille Carter at 25. And then you got to go all the way down to 34 to find Taquan Graham.
Man, look at how many. Man, I gotta tell you, look at how many. I mean, how many schools out of state are coming into Texas and poaching? And like I said, when Ohio State and Notre Dame and USC, when they come to Texas and Michigan, they come to Texas, they ain't coming for 3 stars, man. They're not coming for that hidden gem that some Texas high school coach told them about. They don't know about those guys.
Nope.
They know about the big time, straight cash, homie, 5-star guys, borderline for 4.5 stars, whatever. That's who they're coming for. So they're taking Texas's top talent. So you want to know why the Big 12 sucks? You want to know why defense in the Big 12 sucks? That's why. Period. And that is the silent killer of the Big 12. It ain't the fact that they won't expand. It ain't Baylor's scandal. It really ain't all that. It won't kill the Big 12. What's going to kill the Big 12 is all of their top talent is leaving the state at an unprecedented rate. And I thought that Tom Herman would kind of be the guy that build a wall, if you will, close the borders on the state, because everybody knows that Texas, to win a national title, you got to get the best talent in the state. That's the only way you're going to do it. I don't necessarily know if that's his plan initially, because, I think he's taking a different approach because of the changing dynamic, but that's killing the state of Texas, man. College football in the state of Texas is bad. That's why.
And no, I mean, when
period.
was it last like this? It was in the 90s. And it was like, Rod, how you talked about growing up, it was the Colorados, the Michigans, Florida States. Me and Jeff watched Michigan, Florida State. There was a national element that would come here and poach. And then it took something like Ricky Williams, the Heisman season, and Mac Brown to make Texas cool again, to get the kids to be, have a reason to come in. Basically, you're at that 20-year cycle where Texas isn't the cool team. Now the kids have more availability than ever. Back in the day, you had to be Notre Dame with the national TV contract, or you had to be an elite like Michigan and Florida State to come in and take that from TV. Now you don't need that. You were saying names like even smaller schools coming in like the Techs and losing to your peers like we talked about, and being poached, and Texas hasn't been able to seize momentum.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's, the names have changed, man, because when we were kids, it was like Michigan, Miami, UCLA, Notre Dame, Florida State, man. Bobby Bowden. See, Rod, to your point, Bobby Bowden wasn't coming into Texas to get scrubs.
He's coming for the
David Warrens and the Jerome Sapps.
Yeah, that's the ones they're coming for. They don't know about the other hidden gems. I mean,
he didn't know about Rod B.
Yeah, well,
not initially. Not initially.
Oh, not initially, but once people start jumping on the Rod B bandwagon.
Once all it took was Tim Brewster jumping on the bandwagon.
All it took was Tim Brewster. That's right.
Who's still getting it done, man. Tim Brewster might get him the number 1 prospect in the state this year.
Marvin Wilson.
Yeah.
He keeps hitting that H-Town, so he knows something.
All right, so let's get back to Texas, to this class. It's like we don't want to talk about the Texas classes. We're talking about everything.
No, let's get into it. Well, we're going macro and working our way to the micro.
Right. So when you look at this class, 3 guys already on campus: Sam Ehlinger, Tennille Carter, Josh Rowland. Guys, I think all 3 of those guys have a chance to contribute to this team right away. Rod, do you think my theory, my two quarterback system theory with Sam Ehlinger and Shane Buechele, that's just kind of a crackpot theory, or is it crazy enough to work?
No, I think it's not only is I think it just crazy enough to work. We've seen it work before, first
Right.
of all, right? And we've seen it work in different ways.
Chris Leak, Tim Tebow is kind of
Yeah.
what my thinking on that deal.
And I listen. You know how I am about quarterbacks, man. You can never have too many. I'm still a little like a lot of Longhorn fans. I would like to have had another quarterback in this class if possible. Couldn't do that. I think he should get 2 quarterbacks in the next class. Then I saw a stat about from 247 that from I mean CBS had it from 2011 to 2014. You take the top 50. All right, the top 50 quarterbacks from 2011 to 2014,
Right.
and half of them, 50% of them, transferred at one point. That's crazy.
Because you can only play one at a time.
And the one that ain't playing is upset, mad, and wants out. And there's a program out there with the insert quarterback here spread systems where he can go play. So I know people are like, oh, well, I know we're getting, hopefully, to a golden age of quarterbacking again where we have we have quarterback controversy because we have 2 good quarterbacks when it was Chris Sims and Major White, even Chance Mock and Vince Young. I think that was 2 good quarterback. I don't know if it was a controversy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of quarterback controversy.
Jefferson ended up being a good college quarterback at Ole
Yeah,
Miss.
well, no question. Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. And we had a lot of guys transfer, G.J. Kinney, all that kind of stuff. But man, and then that's not the transfer rate is separate, right? That 50%. There's a 50% chance that quarterback's on a transfer. That's not including injury. That's not including the guy changing positions, which has happened like 3 different times in the last 5 years for Texas quarterbacks. You know what I mean? Like you just can't predict it. So stockpile them, man. They're like socks and underwear. You can't have too many. Get as many quarterbacks as you can get, man.
Exactly.
Because you don't know. Every quarterback we've gotten since we've been in quarterback hell was supposed to work out.
And
none of them worked out.
And like we were saying, that when you look at the bust rates and then you add in the fact that at that position you're getting almost a 50% just bust no matter what. When you look at the top elite players, you got to stockpile them. And then even with the injury factors, you always know you're one hit away. So the more the merrier at that position, especially in the most offensive, conference of all type of football.
Agreed.
Yeah, 100%.
And real quick, I'm still waiting to see the Jordan Pouncey, or actually, yes, it looks like Jordan Pouncey did pick Texas. Yes.
Oh!
Sorry, there's a bunch of stuff coming across the Twitter, but yes.
There you go.
Jordan Pouncey to Texas.
Tell me about Jordan Pouncey.
Jordan Pouncey is a 6'2" receiver, Rod, who's kind of, as best I can describe him.
Give me a player comparison. That's what everybody loves.
Give
me a clip.
The lazy comp, Armani Foreman.
Oh, I like that.
Kind of a guy that could play inside, outside.
Man,
do
we're
some
so
things.
deep at wide receiver. Texas is deep at wide receiver. I mean, hell, they go by 9 deep easily. 9, 10 deep maybe.
You want to count this out real quick?
No, they definitely do. I mean, I think they do, right? I could just go. I mean, you can go top
yeah,
and down.
I mean, I answered a question on my scatter shooting column a couple weeks ago. I left John Bird out, and I got like 6 deep.
Yeah, we went up to 10 almost the other day.
You can forget about John Burt and talking about Texas.
Because it was,
how deep they
I
are.
was talking about the veterans, and it was like Armani Foreman, Lorenzo Joe, Dorian Leonard, Jake Oliver. Those are your veterans.
Yeah.
And then you throw in Burt. Then you
Duvernay.
got Colin Johnson, Devin Duvernay.
Gerard Hurd out there?
Gerard Hurd's still there. Little Jordan Humphrey played last year. You still got Davion Curtis and Reggie Hemphill Maps, who we haven't seen.
Come on,
You're
man.
bringing in Damian Miller in this class. Now
It's
Jordan
so
Pouncey.
deep.
But going back to the quarterback thing, though, Rod, and keeping everybody happy and making, kind of being inventive, to me, and I'll hammer this till the cows come home this offseason, anything you can do to minimize the amount of contact Shane Buechele has to deal with, the better off you're going to be. Man, if you're that loaded at wide receiver, give Gerard Hurd a package of like 10 plays at quarterback.
You don't really, I mean, not that Gerard Hurd hasn't been great at wide receiver. He's been fantastic, actually. And I know it increases his draft.
So deep.
His draft prospects. So at least he has that on film, and you can always move him back there. He looks like he transitions really well and really quickly. He has a kind of a natural feel at that slot wide receiver. But I'm with you, man. I think you exhaust every possibility at quarterback. You don't know what you got with Matthew Merrick. I don't think any of us do. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. Put Gerard Hurd in that in that quarterback competition, along with Sam Ellinger, no red shirt there, and Shane Buechele, and then Matthew Merrick too. Even though I know nothing about Matthew Merrick, I'll admit I am totally ignorant on Matthew Merrick.
Yeah,
He could be awesome.
I don't think anybody on the 40 really knows.
He's like the mystery
He's good enough to get a scholarship in
I'm
gray
not saying
shirt.
that being
So yeah,
disrespectful. I'm just saying he was a former basketball player who's had some back issues, and last year he was healthy. I tell you this, man,
Okay.
and I talked about this on the podcast.
Is he dual threat? What is he?
He's not really a dual
What is he
threat guy.
classified as? Functional mobility?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
I don't know if you consider him a dual threat.
Okay.
Not a statue.
The thing I liked about him though is as a passer, granted he's still got miles to go before you're even putting him in the discussion of. But seeing just the baseline skill set improve from his freshman year in 2015 to where he was in his redshirt freshman year last year,
Yeah.
man, he came a long dang way, a long way.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Maybe it's a deal where he's kind of like this Texas Air's version of Nordco, where he's just kind of there, and maybe he gets to the point. And people forget though.
No.
People forget Norco was an elite
Norco
prospect coming out,
yes,
right?
no doubt.
But maybe in terms of his
Nice.
despite your only
viability,
memory
his
of him on the
usage to the
field.
program, maybe he's that guy that, okay, if we need somebody to come in for a series or two or whatever, or maybe to come finish a game in the second half, we're not totally freaked out about it. Maybe Merrick gets to that
I
point.
feel you on that. No. You want that guy. That's a part of a healthy, the wellness of the quarterback position, if you will. Having that guy, having an insurance policy as a steady backup.
It was like as a Cowboy
know.
fan growing up, seeing Jason Garrett as your third stringer.
Right?
It's like, well, at some point, if somebody gets hurt, you come in and salvage a ball.
It was like Cody Carlson for the
Yep, there you
Oilers,
go,
right?
man.
Cody Carlson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cody Carr, the pride of Churchill High School in San Antonio.
Yeah, I went to Cody Carlson football camp back in the day, man.
Nice.
I would imagine each of us went to like some spare NFL players camp.
Cody Carlson
Yeah,
camp. I
Cody
remember
Carlson
all my
football
friends
camp.
would
I
go
grew
to
up-
the
you guys know I
Brandy
grew up
Ferryman.
in Florence, America, man. In Fort Hood, there's always some NFL spare, always having some camp on the weekend
Hey,
or something.
that could have been Rod B, man. Rod B,
like 20
DB camp.
bucks. Yeah.
No, it was like before the TJ Ford and KD era. It was the Brandy Perryman basketball camp at Texas for about 2 decades.
Yeah, no, but you're right though. You got to have those guys, and that's why I am all for your idea, man. I think you're around the money. I think it would help in terms of the packages that he could have in terms of the run game by the quarterback, Sam Ellinger being. We talked about it. We jokingly said that, or at least I said, that he's kind of built like a Kardashian. That he's built like very bottom heavy.
Like
if you will.
I said last week, somebody described
he's
him
my
to me
centaur.
as a hockey goalie.
He's like, yes, there you go. He look thick down low. You ever see him? Like, man, he's thick. So he is kind of built for the run game of Tom
Hey,
Herman.
by the way, I
offense.
got a request. CB, I know CB's listening to this or will listen to this. Can we get like a Photoshop Sam Ellinger centaur for Rod? Just so Rod can
No.
Rod can
that
have
is a
that to use it.
compliment, by the way.
No, I'm serious. Like when Sam Ellinger scores a touchdown out of like the Wildcat package next year, Rod B doesn't tweet anything. You just tweet the centaur.
Watch
Boom.
how bottom heavy he is when y'all see him. Like man, he is a bottom. Yeah, man, telling you. Yeah, it's good.
I need to
He's
find
hard. He's hard to tackle. He really is. He's hard to bring down. Yeah.
So I think
Most
all
centaurs
those
are.
guys, all three of the early enrollees can contribute. I just want to go position by position. You guys give me some thoughts. So we talked about quarterback, running back. Tennille Carter and Daniel Young both going to add to that room. Daniel Young just got a ratings bump at 24/7 Sports. Barton Simmons, our director of scouting, watched some film, made some phone calls. That he's a violent downhill runner, which he is. I mean, Houston was going to take him to basically kind of be their version of the kind of guy Tom Herman had at Ohio State with a guy like Carlos Hyde. He was going to be kind of that kind of nasty downhill thumper to get you between the tackles. Not going to run away from anybody, but just a guy that can pound you 15, 20 carries a game and just thump it between the tackles. Guys, I mean, I can't remember which coach said it because I'm going on like an hour and a half of sleep right now.
Hey,
But
that's-
You
might have
probably
been-
talked to like 500 coaches.
it might have been Mac that said it, and I kind of wish Mac would have had this theory about quarterbacks. But you always want it at running back. You always want to evaluate one, find the best guy for you. You want to take one really good one every year
I like that.
because of the beating that position has to take. You never want to leave anything to chance. Again, I wish he would have taken his own advice at quarterback, but that's another discussion for another day. But I like where this running back depth chart is going now. You look at the four you got on campus. for Warren and Johnson, we talk a lot about Porter. I haven't given up on Kyle Porter yet, and then Tristan Houston. Yeah, these two, man, that's 6 backs. And again, Rod, not all of them are going to pan out, but man, the law of averages says, man, if you got 6, 1 or 2 of them is going to end up being really good.
And I like the different skill sets too. I mean, they're not all the same in terms of the skill set. You got a lot of different, so you can use them in a lot of different ways in terms of situational football.
Right. The 2 guys that really intrigue me are Tennille Carter and Kirk Johnson. As far as guys that can catch it out of the backfield, I think, I look at Tennille Carter and I look at Tennille Carter and what Duke Catalan did at U of H last year. The rushing numbers weren't great, but he caught 40 balls.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah,
that's big.
Tennille Carter,
that's safety blanket for a young quarterback, new system. That can be huge.
Right. The position that we have wasted so much airtime and I've wasted so much print space and so many thoughts on for a long time is tight end.
Oh, the endangered species on the 40 acres.
It's like Desmond Harrison, man. I hear it exists, but I don't really
It's been a while. It's been a while, but it's slowly making, I think, a comeback. He just did. What does Tom Herman call his offense? The pro spread.
Pro spread.
You need a tight end in a pro spread.
Yeah,
to get better.
I was thank you, Mac. I was out
needs to get better.
I was out at hey Matt, by the way, if Mac were in a defensive meeting and he noticed guys were like stripping the ball and punching it out and getting past deflections, what would he say to make sure guys start finishing plays?
Well, first off, he'd probably just say
no.
But after there's a couple other ones I like. My favorite one is the one that you're referencing, though, and it's rather simple, and it's a command, and he gets a lot of those out there, and it's one that only lasts 2 seconds.
We've got to start getting on those balls.
There you go. Just the way he accentuates it.
We've got
a little X's and O's advice from Mac.
That is a great drop.
It is like cooking. It's an ingredient. You have to throw this in, you have to throw this in, but in the end, it all has to work together.
That's him on recruiting.
Mac Brown will, and I love Mac, but Mac will throat punch me if he probably ever
that is great. I want that drop. Can you have the drop about we got to start getting on those balls? Can you put that one to the side for me?
Yes,
please.
It's unacceptable.
That was great.
It's a hard one.
I think Mac, the not part of my day, not part of my deal is my favorite Mac Brown drop.
Yes, there's a couple good ones.
You got that one, Matt, just so we can fire off that one real fast?
Man. I love that one. That's my favorite, though.
It's not part of my day. It's not part of my deal.
Getting on those balls.
I remember what supposed to happen. So what do we do here? Let's fire them.
That's a good one, too.
I remember what year that was. That was like 2011.
Yeah, all the random bouncing of balls.
I want to maybe it was 2010.
It was 2010. It was 2010. Because it was right after that.
Yes.
Texas has a scoop and score Jackson Jeffcoat to take a lead against Oklahoma, and then ends up not scooping, and then he needs to say that he has to.
No, because Matt gave a great stat that they had forced, I believe, the same number of fumbles or something close to the same number of fumbles last season, but they just they couldn't recover any of the fumbles. So the ball was on the ground just as much. They just couldn't get on those balls.
We've got to start getting on those balls. So that's obvious. We've lost our swagger.
That is great. No, that's fantastic. That's my favorite Mac drop right now for 2017.
Sorry, everybody. I got to go for a piece of gum because my throat is like insanely dry right now. I guess that's what happens when you go on 90 minutes.
I was going to say, man, yes, exactly. Sleep deprivation, man, has a lot of effects on the human body.
I'm going to Temple after the press conference, too, by the way. I'm doing a story on Taquan Graham. So.
You should take a nap, a power nap, man, somewhere. Take a power nap.
I've lost my mind, I think.
You know, Clemson has a nap room in their facilities now.
I think Ohio State does too.
I thought about Clemson this morning.
What would you put in a nap room if you could make a nap room? What's like a necessity in a nap room for obviously a dimmer.
For
you need a dimmer.
Yes,
gotta have a dimmer. Gotta have dimmer lights.
Or the humidifier.
Vaporizer. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Humidifier.
Yes, I totally agree.
Winner. Ding, ding.
Humidifier.
Jeff Howe. They said unlimited snacks, Jeff.
Yes.
I don't think they meant that.
And plus they had no Chick-fil-A on campus.
Chick-fil-A.
That's great.
Some fried chicken.
A vaporizer.
Make sure we mark that, and I'll own that.
Oh,
a whole lot of water.
All right,
we got
a whole lot of water.
That
some
discussion is over.
Funyuns.
Anyway, I was out at Lake Travis this morning for their signing day ceremony, talking to Cade Brewer. And he said Tom Herman wants to bring the H-back in, Rod, the Brian Harsin H-back. And I keep saying this, man, we talked about this when we talked about the Herman offense. I think people will look at this offense and say, hey, kind of reminds me of that Brian Harsin offense a little bit.
The show about nothing.
with the H backs and some motions and things like that. It's going to be obviously it's a different spin on it. I don't think Tom Herman will call a play based on what hash mark he's on and determine that's not the good time to give Devin Duvernay the ball because you're not on the right hash mark against Kansas or whatever. But
I think he has more. I agree with you. I think it's also more of a he'll throw the football downfield more, more vertical passing than the Brian Harsin offense, right?
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because remember, Brian Harsin didn't throw it downfield a ton. Major Applewhite takes over after he leaves and starts just chunking it downfield to Marquise Goodwin.
Very true.
You know what I mean? Like, in terms of, I think he would throw it downfield more, Tom Herman. But I agree with your assessment about the offense.
But the tight ends, Cade Brewer's a guy who I think Cade Brewer could play right away. I think there's a chance he could as an H-back because there's nobody really at that position with his skill set. But the guy, there's no question. It will not surprise me, excuse me, if we get to the end of the 2017 season and the biggest offensive contributor from this freshman class is Reese Lato. I think he's that good, number one. Number two, Texas does not have a complete, legitimate five-tool tight end skill set like he's got. Granted, it's tough to expect a lot from a true freshman, but Rod, I'm telling you, man, and I don't want to put too much on the kid, but I think this could be the guy that finally, after all this time, we see that Texas has found a tight end who can be on the field every down and can threaten the defense in the pass game. He doesn't have to come off the field. He's the answer.
If he can block, he is the answer.
He was two-way All-State player in Oklahoma. You look at his defensive film. That's what makes you feel good about him is you watch his defensive film.
He's got physicality.
42 tackles and 9 sacks. Man, he's played at Jinx in Oklahoma, and that's top. That's the best competition in the state of Oklahoma. Now, it depends on what your opinion of football in the state of Oklahoma is, but when Jinx or Tulsa Union or teams like that come down and they play a Euless Trinity or a South Lake Carroll or somebody like that, they're good competitive football games. So really, granted, the robust numbers aren't there for talented teams in Oklahoma, but the very good teams in Oklahoma on a given year can play with just about anybody in the country.
We've always talked about the tight end position, but as of late, a lot of great offensive minds have figured out that it's the ultimate chess piece, right? In terms of a matchup, it's a great way to get a matchup that's advantageous to the offense easily. Because if they put a tight end on a guy who has kind of that 5-tool tight end skill set, then that's easy money all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. If they decide to put a safety on that guy, a lot of the times it's still easy money because a lot of safeties can't really cover a kind of a 5-tool tight end. If they even decide to put a nickel or a dime back on them, or they have a really good safety that can cover, well, if that's the case, then it opens things up on the outside, and you get more man-to-man coverage on the outside. And with Texas as deep as they are at wide receiver, that also is a dangerous thing. And that's why also with you talk about the chess piece thing, having a really good tight end with all what I think Brian Harsin called it funk. That's pre-snap motion, like pre-snap shifts, all that kind of stuff that allows the quarterback to get a gauge on what the defense is doing and figure out if they're in man coverage or in zone coverage. I mean, that's what a good tight end allows you to do. It's separate from what your wide receivers are doing. You can do a lot more funk, which can discombobulate a defense before snap. They always say that motion causes emotion. I mean, you get a lot of different things going on in offense, especially a lot of times shifting with the tight end, and you force defenses to not only think, but they have to react. And if they're, if they're thinking too much, then they're not reacting quick enough. So I love having the fact of having a tight end. We haven't had one for so long. We've kind of forgotten about the advantages of having a really good tight end, a 5-tool one, like a David Thomas or a Bo Scaife when they were on campus, or Jermichael Finley, for that matter. I forgot about him when they were on campus. We haven't had one of those guys for a really long time. And that's part of the offensive identity crisis that Texas has also going through this quarterback hell the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, think about that. You in the game where the biggest advantage right now sort of has been that position in the past decade in its emergence. Mm-hmm. It's been when Texas has actually regressed to about the worst it's been. So if you think about that, that just limits your ceiling of potential within the conference.
That's a good point. I like that. Yeah, you got to track that. The
it's
tight
huge.
End,
in perspective,
the tight end has become more of an endangered species. The Texas offensive identity crisis has gotten worse and worse.
Yes. So now that is in more value, and if you have him, it means even more to your success in a passing league. You now have no chance at it when you don't even have a marginal guy.
Wide receiver and offensive line are two positions that we talked about, guys, and I don't know if there's really a need to go that deep into it because I don't think the chances are slim. I think that we're going to see much of any of those four, the two linemen and the two receivers, Pouncey and Damian Miller. I think, my lazy comp to Pouncey was Amani Foreman, just a guy that can inside, outside, can stretch the defense. Damian Miller, I saw Damian Miller the first time I saw him was in a state semifinal game his sophomore year at JT. They were playing Alito in the state semifinals, and it was not a good day for the Lions. Alma mater of Aaron Ross and our good friend Tim Crowder, among others. Earl Campbell, also a John Tyler alum, by the way.
Tyler.
There you go.
But not a good day for the Lions. But Damian Miller was a guy that you could say, okay, this guy belongs. Like even as a sophomore, Rod, this is what I love about like the evaluation process and the eye test is I like going to a game where I don't really know. I've heard names or whatever. I don't like looking at the roster. I just like going out like for warm-ups. And I'm like, all right, I want to know who that guy, and that guy is. And if it matches up with the guys that, you've heard about beforehand, you're like, okay, cool. Yeah, that guy, that guy can play.
That's why I loved calling high school football with Craig Way because, man, you just go out there and I honestly, you could tell the guys that were D1 prospects. It was pretty obvious. Like, oh, that guy. I was like, and Craig was like, oh, yeah, he's got an offer. I was like, yeah, it's pretty obvious. I'd offer him something. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I always say a scout's job is not to figure out what a player's good at. It's really kind of figure out the flaws in their skill set, and that's the hard part. Anybody can go out there and go, that guy's good.
Right.
Yeah.
You go watch Malik Jefferson and be like, yeah, he's good. He can play.
Especially against, other high school kids. Yeah, you don't be like, oh, yeah, that guy's good. Oh, he's good. Offer him. Yeah. So I enjoy doing that too. I mean, that's the best part about Texas high school football. Hell, you say that with a lot of kids. You go and watch a Lake Travis Westlake game, and you be like, "Damn, he's good." Is anybody offered him? They be like, "No." Why? He's good.
By the way, props to Lake Travis. I believe they had 11 guys signed today. Did you? Here's the crazy
football factory.
Rod,
sick, man.
Rod, you were close to that North Shore program
out of a senior class.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the number at DeSoto?
No.
DeSoto.
That was Deshaun Robinson. I mean, not Deshaun, but Deshaun Robinson.
Sean Robinson, early enrollee quarterback at TCU.
Yeah.
DeSoto, 28 kids signed national letters
That's not true.
today.
That's not true.
For football?
For football. 28
what?
kids.
Wow.
That's not true.
Well, no, because I remember
FBS,
I did one of their games a couple years ago.
On their senior class, 28 kids.
Also, at every level.
Right.
A couple years ago, they had like 5 high-level recruits in one class. They had like 5 guys.
How many
ranked.
FBS?
I have to go back and look.
No.
I mean, it's in the double digits. I mean, it's pretty high up there. I mean, they got LSU. They got one going to where's Xavier Newman going? Baylor.
Did they win a state title this year?
Yeah, they beat Cibolo Steel.
It's like okay,
that would have been really upsetting. That was like that coach.
You are worthless. Get out of here, dude.
No,
you have a college team.
I was just gonna say, man, what the hell was that
did a poor job.
Yeah, that's a dang coaching mistake. Is that it is? What was he doing? But that's phenomenal. But there you go to Texas once again. I bet that's got to be some kind of record.
But you get for Texas.
We should have been in the ball game with fast field goal. The coach had sent him in. We shouldn't have sent him in. That's a dang coaching mistake. That the kids are playing their tail off, and the coaches are screwing it up.
Coaching mistake.
Sorry, guys, I got to do some maintenance on the site for the Jordan Pouncey commitment. So I wouldn't count on seeing Damian Miller or Jordan Pouncey, just likewise. I wouldn't count on seeing Samuel Cosme or Derek Kerstetter. But Derek Kerstetter, Rod, I've been gushing about this kid since I saw him at the Army game.
Yeah.
I love every year, man. If you can just take a guy on the offensive line that can play multiple positions, if he can snap, he can play guard, he can play tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Because, man, those guys, those chess pieces, you think about Chris Halls over the years, the David Snow, guys like that, Trey Hopkins, guys that, hey, man, we got an injury. Man, I need you to go from right guard. I need you to go to center right now. Hey, okay, see back. But this guy needs a brace. I need you to go from center. I need you to go to work from right tackle. Yeah. A guy that can just anywhere along the line you can plug him
I agree. Manufactured depth.
Derek Kerstetter, I think, could be that kind of guy. I think he's got a really, really nice upside to him. Defensively is where we got the one surprise today with Jamari Chisholm, the junior college defensive lineman. Oklahoma A&M, junior college, Jamari Chisholm's coming out of. And it's interesting, Rod, this staff, and this is one of the questions if somebody else asks, I'd like to ask Tom Herman today at the press conference. They brought in several junior college defensive linemen, and all of them kind of fit the same mold that Chisholm's got as far as a measurable 6'5", 280. You're running that odd front, that 3-man front. You want to be versatile. You want to be able to shift and stem and do all that stuff without having to swap personnel groups. Man, you need a guy that's long, that's lean, that can add some bulk to him, but that can play multiple shades up front.
Yeah.
Texas has some of those guys in the pipeline right now. I think Jordan Elliott's one of those guys. I think Marcel Southall is one of those guys. We didn't see Southall or Chris Daniels last year, so you got no pure quote unquote. Chisholm's a tackle, but no prep tackles. But you got the two you redshirted last year, so you can carry those guys over. And depth wise, you're going to be fine, I think. But Chisholm, I think, gives you a veteran presence. I think, if nothing else, Rod, I go back to your 2001 defense, right? The defense that was, you guys led the country in total defense, I think?
I believe we were, top total defense.
But you look at that defense and, you had some young guys, but think about the tackles. It was a young Marcus Tubbs and Maurice Gordon playing DT at like 260 pounds.
Out of place, but he was great at penetrating. He really could. He got in the backfield a ton and just wreaked havoc.
And a veteran presence. Mo Gordon had been around. It wasn't his first rodeo.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So I think just Jamari Chisholm, if nothing else, you get a guy that's, look, if you play junior college ball, it's different from playing high school ball. You've at least taken a step up, so maybe he can adjust a little bit quicker. You still got Poona Ford and Chris Nelson, but I think just adding a buffer between Nelson and Ford and the young kids, just to where maybe one of those guys isn't ready. Maybe they're not going to be ready to play 50 snaps a game. And defensive tackles, I would hope you're not playing them 50 snaps a game. But maybe you decide, okay, we need Jordan Elliott needs 20 a game, but Chris Daniels needs 7. Gerald Wilbon needs 5. But Southall needs 9. And Chisholm's one of those guys that you can just kind of rotate in and let him go. Elsewhere on the defensive line, Max Cummins, the defensive end for Fort Worth All Saints, pure upside kid, 6'5", 255. He's from Austin, actually. He attended St. Andrews and then ended up at All Saints. But, he's going to plug into that kind of 4-eye position behind Charles Amenahu and Andrew Fitzgerald. And I think, he's one of these guys that you're not going to know what you got with him till about probably 2, maybe even 3 years down the road. And then the guy that I think is intriguing, a guy that I'm supposed to, if I can get over there in time to go see later this afternoon, Taquan Graham over at Temple, who I think has some really good, natural rush ability.
Yeah. Natural pass rusher. That's what I've heard.
Body's a little bit like Cedric Reed, just from the sense of, man, he's a lean 260 pounds. You're like, son, you're about 4 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches away from kind of blowing up. You just eating that peanut butter and jelly and lift you some dumbbells and you'll be 280 in no time.
Those are those project type players. When you describe that, are the ones that people just like mouth water over, because if you can add 40 pounds of muscle, make you an athletic, big 6'4", 290.
I think Graham's one of those guys that you talk about that 4-eye position. You'd be perfect for that down the road. And we say 4-eye, it's not like you're just crashing down, defending the dive the whole time. I mean, that's because of this defense. You can shift and you could be a 7 technique on one play. Hell, one depending on whatever look you want to show Rod B, you could end up playing a wide 9. Who knows? I mean, you could do some different things.
That's the whole point of the 3-4.
Right. Yeah. Taquan Graham gives you that kind of versatility, so I'm interested to see where he goes. Maybe, guys, the guy who's going to have the biggest impact as we go to linebacker is Gary Johnson. And Rod, we talk about Jamari Chisholm being a guy who can maybe be a buffer between the veterans and the young guys, but let's get real. When you sign a JUCO guy, you're not bringing him in here to ride the bench.
Yeah, he's not a project guy.
No.
Yeah.
You bringing him here
help
to play.
me right now. Yeah.
And Gary Johnson will help Texas right now. Have you guys seen video on this cat?
I've not.
No.
Is he an outside linebacker or inside?
Make that that's homework for you two. Go watch some Gary Johnson video. I don't care where you put him because he's just going to run real fast and blow stuff up.
So he can run?
I'll tell you
I
this.
just love that his name is Gary Johnson, because I wish we had the other Gary Johnson's original sound. The first time that Gary Johnson, the basketball player for Texas, was on the air with Craig Way, he actually quoted Rick Barnes at halftime and said, "Oh yeah, he told us to quit being a whole bunch of Pete," and then bleeped it right there. And that's my best memory of Gary Johnson. So now we got a new one.
Yeah, here's the deal with Gary Johnson. Was really an unknown. Was from Birmingham, Alabama. Was really kind of an unknown guy.
Oh, he's the 5-star kid. I got you.
Yeah. He goes to Dodge City Community College, and the kid just blows up. And of course, Nick Saban loves him, wants him, offers him. He commits to Alabama. It's his dream school. But what's interesting is much flack as the SEC gets for their academic requirements or lack thereof.
Yeah.
The SEC has pretty strict rules about JUCO transfers of what the transcript has to look like and how many classes you've taken in a certain field of study with certain math credits and certain classes. It's really weird how they do it because I think they've cracked down on just, oh yeah, go get you a JUCO. Bring you like 10 NFL JUCO guys in for a year and then send them off or whatever.
Wow.
So the Alabama thing fell through. And Gary Johnson's back in the market. Todd Orlando, credit him. He goes, reaches out to Gary Johnson. Boom, makes it happen. And now you got a guy that ideally you put him on the inside. I think you've got you a nice mix on the inside with Gary Johnson, Ed Freeman, and Anthony Wheeler. What that allows you to do is that allows you to not pigeonhole Malik Jefferson and say, we want him inside. We want him outside. Yeah. Now you can move him around wherever you want. You can move Jeffrey McCulloch around wherever you want. You can take Eric Fowler and move him wherever you want. That's the thing, man. And I just went through 5 names on the depth chart and did not mention Breckenhager or Malcolm Roach.
Yeah. And when you're talking about a guy like Gary Johnson, that talent level to be able to get, that's when we talk about value and maybe looking through this class at one of the guys that could exceed expectations. Now, he had prior expectations, but because of his path, they have been lowered. That now you're getting a guy that Nick Saban wanted to start at linebacker. So, I mean, that's pretty damn good to be coming to Texas and to be able to get very under the radar is very rare.
Yeah. I like the fact that, you know, the linebacker position has got guys, Rod, that are these guys inside guys? Are they outside guys? Actually, man, on a given down, they can do any of it. And I don't think you have to pigeonhole guys, like I said, and say, you're an inside guy. You're a weak side inside guy. You're a strong side inside guy. You're a strong side outside guy. You're a weak side outside guy. Mix and match it on a given down, man. And with as much depth as you've got, man, they can mix and match their combinations.
Yeah,
you should be able to.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I mean, you would like to be as multiple. You would like teams not to be able to go, he's always inside. All right, and this is his skill set inside. We know how to game plan
Just
for him.
a key to tip off.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So I just think, just keeping teams on their toes. I agree with you. And I think the linebacking core, it's got a lot of depth, but you got a lot of different skill sets. You got a lot of guys that just play well in space, and you like to be able to have the guys like Malik Jefferson and Breckenhager who play well, just kind of out there in space and let them wreak havoc if they can, as much as possible.
You hate to put expectations on a guy, but the expectations for Gary Johnson, as highly recruited as he is and being a JUCO guy, should be Gary Johnson should be starting against Maryland on September 2nd.
Okay.
Even though he's getting here, he's obviously not on campus for spring ball. He gets here during the summer. That's the expectation.
Just how good he is as a
raw
linebacker.
If he's not starting, he better be playing a lot.
Okay,
Just saying, I mean, like I said, no disrespect, but that's why you bring in JUCO guys.
That's the only reason to bring in a JUCO.
Well, and at that position, it's like the defensive running back. If you have the skills and the mentality, really, it sort of can come uncoached. Now, there's a lot to be added to that, but you can come in and play immediately at linebacker.
If you're recruiting a JUCO guy and he's not a guy that's going to be, and the Chisholm thing is different because you've got young defensive tackles, and you can kind of maybe rationalize that a little bit. If you're bringing in a JUCO guy and you're not bringing him in to start, why are you bringing him in? Just take another high school kid that you really like and develop him and let him be a project.
Okay.
You shouldn't bring in JUCO guys to redshirt unless obviously there's an injury or whatever. But the expectations are going to be high on Gary Johnson. Where I don't think the expectations are going to be high on, but I think Texas has a good chance to get some return on investment is with this defensive back class. And Rod, I was thinking to the last time, I go back to the 2013 class, the last time Texas had a small class, and looking back at that defensive back class and what you got out of it. And it was Antoine Davis, Shavosky Collins, and Eric Kuhn. And I'm sure people listening to this podcast are probably trying to think, who the heck are Shavosky Collins and Eric Kuhn?
Yeah, both of those.
Neither of them have ever played a down.
The bust
on the
rate,
40.
as we talk about. Yeah.
And Antoine Davis is in that contributor category. He started some games. He's a guy that, man, if you got to throw him in there to, for a series or whatever, you're not going to freak out about it. Good veteran guy to have around, good special teams guy. But I look at this class and I look at a guy like Kobe Boyce, who's going to be the corner in this class. He probably fits more of the.
Was Dylan Haynes in that 2013 class?
No, Dylan Haynes would have been 2012, but I mean he was a walk-on. So.
Yeah. Hey man, Hey, it's still.
He doesn't even count on days like this.
No,
He doesn't exist on paper.
Just curious because we were talking about.
It is
ODBs.
funny though, like that person doesn't exist on paper, and then you get him in to be a multi-year starter. Hence, that we don't know what you always get of these guys.
Great return on investment, because there was really no investment.
Damn straight.
It was straight profit.
Oh yeah, he was volunteering
Straight
more
profit.
than worker not being
Straight
paid.
profit,
He was
man.
volunteering his time and paying his own way.
Straight profit.
So that's kind of like how things are with me and iHeartMedia.
Yes.
Hey, me too.
Just saying. I don't care. Throw me out of the studio.
They will, sir. I'm just joking.
If it happens.
athlete. That is brilliant, sir.
That is.
I don't think anybody around here cares
That's
enough
a
about
very-
what goes on in here while we're doing this podcast anyway.
That is very appropriate.
Man, they just see us out there working.
Right, but
You have some mighty strong-looking workers here, sir.
but the defensive back class, you look at Kobe Boyce as the corner in this class, probably fits more in the boundary corner profile. Josh Thompson's a guy was Brandon Jones' high school teammate who could be a safety nickel corner guy. He's your guy that can play multiple positions. And Montrell Estelle, everybody in our scouting department at 24/7 Sports, man, they love them some Montrell Estelle. Right, we talk about this all the time, man. There's two areas of Texas where you can go in and find you some good raw athletes and say that, because the facilities aren't what they are in the suburban areas or whatever.
Yeah.
You go find me big, strong, athletic, raw guys from East Texas or the Golden Triangle. Man, I'll take that guy. I'll figure out something to do with him.
Yeah, just take them. They use a great raw clay. You can and then you can put in today's kind of. You talk about defense too. You really like those guys who are just kind of raw clay because they end up being multiple for you because they don't really have a true home or a designated spot. And honestly, that's where you want all you guys. We talked about the linebackers. How you know what? I recruit guys who play outside and inside. I don't recruit an inside linebacker. Hell, in the Big 12, that's where you're going to end up anyway. We're playing nickel 70% of the time.
Exactly.
And DBs, yeah, man, I would like to, and that, Coach Aquino was big about it. Yeah, you want the guys who can play nickel, play corner, and hell, if he can even play safety, I would like that too. Ideally, you'd like that. You know what I mean? Because shut down corners like Rob B don't exist anymore. Where you play corner and that's really all you play. I play nickel, but most of the guys you want them to have a very versatile skill set.
Rod, you got robbed, man, because you mentioned it, and I went back and heard some of the show we did a couple weeks ago. Man, you'd have been perfect to play nickel in this era of the Big 12.
Yeah, it would have been good in this era because you just play man and they can just man you
You're
up.
a man cover guy. You're a blitz guy. I mean, that's your skill set right
and
there.
And they don't no need to tackle really anybody. Nobody can tackle.
Right.
So, and not that I couldn't tackle, but I
Man.
wouldn't have to be a physical presence or anything. Yeah.
You're, again, as I say all the time, you're not having to take on guys with the last name Makovic on their jersey.
Yeah.
Nebraska fullbacks.
Nebraska fullback
charging
pulling,
downhill.
Yeah, pulling linemen for Nebraska on the triple option. Nope, I didn't have to do that.
No, you're starting to sound like Keith Moreland. How Keith Moreland was like, man, I wish I was batting 300 in the 2000s. He'd be making 10 times the amount of money he'd be making.
He's
It's
right,
the
though.
same way.
If there's a 50 number charged in at you up the alley, Rod B, you're in the wrong place.
You're in
man.
the wrong place, man. Especially if you less than 200 pounds, which I was right there.
But and then Josh Rowland, obviously, look, man, we saw Trent Domain last year. If Josh Rowland can be as good as Nick Rose was in the second half of 2015, then that's cool. I mean, you think about the games that Charlie Strong lost because of a field goal. I think it was 7 games by a field goal or less.
Yeah, or special teams, period. I mean, because of special teams, but yeah.
Right.
just a field
But
goal.
now, I mean, if Rowland works out and Rowland's a junior, I mean, you have Rowland and Michael Dixon for another couple years.
And Michael
Your
Dixon's one
punt
of the-
game and
yeah.
your kick game could be real solid.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Michael Dixon's one of the best punters in the country.
Yeah.
Hands down. That's an NFL player.
Is that guy leaving
Right.
early? Not joking. Like,
No,
why
he's
not?
not
If he
li-
came here for a job, like, why would you stay? If you're an NFL
You
player,
know
I
what?
would leave early.
That's true. Why would
Why
he
would
leave
you
early?
stay?
He's not going to get drafted.
Yeah,
right?
no, go, man. That's
Yeah,
that's for next year.
They just bring on punters like that
Yeah.
for free agent deals. Why the hell would he stay? That's a
Mike
hot
Dixon,
take.
he's leaving early.
That's
No, that's a logical hot
Well,
take.
It is a logical hot take. It's a hot take though. He should leave early.
Yep.
What is he this year?
Sophomore?
Sophomore?
Yeah.
Got 2 more years, bro. Get the hell out of here.
We're trying to
man.
get
No,
rid
he'll
of
be a
Michael
junior.
Dixon.
He's a
All
junior.
right.
It's his last year.
Oh yeah, this is it.
He's
right.
gone.
We gotta
Talking about punters leaving early. That's
Guys,
where
we-
Texas football's
we
got
gotta
to.
start winding this up, winding this down, whatever terminology you want to use there. I want to look at some bus rates and bus rates or rates in general of. Hold on just a sec. I got a tweet directed to me
this
from
means.
CB. It's from CB. It's not
Okay,
like
not
it's
recruiting
breaking
news.
No, it's not like it's
Well,
breaking
this is
news.
even better than I like CB
Breaking news.
Oh, this is CB tweeting me about Mac's 2002 class. CB, that's nice, but you need to get to work on Centaur Sam Ellinger.
Centaur Sam.
It's in there worrying about Mac.
That's your job, CB.
Centaur Sam.
That's your homework. I want to go over bus rates real quick, and I want to start with the 98 classes. You guys hear me on the pod. If you're listening to the podcast, flip through my legal pad. This was Mac Brown's transition class that he took from John Makovic, 19 signees in 1998. Your NFL rate, hit rate was 15.8%. Not great. Ahmad Brooks, Mike Williams, Marcus Wilkins.
Got some overachievers out of that group, though.
But here's
development.
Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. Worst case scenario is you'd like to have the bulk of your class fall in the middle.
I mean, you just don't want to have the bust.
bust
like,
is what you have to avoid.
If you can get that 70% above bust, you're going to be looking good. 66% is, survival.
Right.
60's very dangerous.
So here's the guys I put in the significant contributor category from the 98 class. Bo Trahan, Victor Ike, Antoine Kirk Hughes, Everett Rawls, Irvis Hill, Lee Jackson, and Tyrone Jones.
Yeah.
Okay.
For a 36.8% rate of significant contributors. Minimal contributors, Chris Robertson, Montrell Flowers, Bo Baker, Jermaine Anderson, Miguel McKay. And some of those guys were
they
injured.
got starts
Chris Robertson
here and there.
transferred. Yeah. And then your bust rate, Adam Dunn, Courtney Garcia, Jamal Joyner, John Wyndham brought a couple of your former teammates back there in the secondary. So, Matt, your bust rate for that class was 21.1%. You're, higher than 70%.
There you go.
Not
keep
bad.
the bus rate low.
And I bet on that one, Adam Dunn probably was not even on scholarship, was with baseball. So I had always counted those as different bonus guys, like when Marquise Goodwin was a track scholarship or something coming in to play football. So that could even help that class.
Where you get off the rails is the 2014 class, the transition from Mac Brown to Charlie Strong.
So 15 years of balling.
As of right now, your NFL percentage for this class is tracking at 4.4%, with Deontay Foreman being the only guy tracking to be an NFL guy. And he will be drafted this spring.
No question.
Here's where the interesting category is, though, gentlemen. The significant contributors for the 2014 class, and there's a lot to be determined in terms of do any of these guys take that step into being an NFL guy. Gerard Hurd, Amani Foreman, Ed Freeman, John Bonney, Poona Ford, Andrew Beck, Chris Nelson, Jake McMillan, Jason Hall.
Yeah. You got a lot of guys up in the air there. You got like 5 or 6 guys.
Yep.
That if they flip the switch, they could have a chance to get to an NFL training camp.
Now,
somehow.
because 2 of these guys have only done it for about a year, I put them in the minimal contributors category, but they've got the first 2 I'm going to name here have a chance to jump up. Lorenzo Joe, Dorian Leonard, Alex Anderson, Elijah Rodriguez.
Dorian Leonard showed up this year.
Here's for 2014, here's where the problem is. With Derek Roberson, Duke Catalan, Roderick Bernard, Jermaine Roberts, Blake Whiteley, Cam Hampton, I put Terrell Cooney and Garrett Gray here, and Kevin Shorter. You have a 39.1% bust rate.
Tough to survive.
Class.
Now, and something I haven't really thought about is the evolving nature of these bust rates, because now in comparison to the rest of college football, back in the day, I don't know a number, but say 10% would go and transfer out. Now you definitely getting more transfers, so more inclined to have a little bit higher of an inflated bust rate, I would guess, but that would take a lot of numbers to break down nationally.
I would say
still,
35% is still, if you're above 35%, you're getting closer to the danger
It ain't good.
zone.
It just shows that if you aren't getting guys to transfer out, if you are accurate on evaluating and developing and getting guys that are going to buy in and fit your system and everything, that may be valued even more so than it used to be, because you are going to make yourself have that baseline of guys not leaving the program, which is huge, because then they just got to not be good. That's a big difference.
Yeah. No, that's a high bust rate.
Yeah. Way too high.
Gentlemen, that's going to do it for our signing day podcast. Any closing thoughts? Because we got to wrap this up really quick, because I got to get going at this press conference.
Kick some butt.
No closing thoughts, really. I do think I'm not disappointed in the class like a lot of people are. I mean, I think that's ridiculous. It's just Longhorn fans who are not really giving Charlie Strong credit for being a really great recruiter and are hearkening back to days when the brand was different and the landscape of recruiting was different in the state, too.
My only parting shot is this, for a number of reasons, because of some of the guys you took in this class being high upside guys, and because you've got a veteran team. It's going to take you 2 to 3 years. People say this every year, but this is really true for this class. It's going to take you 2 to 3 years to really figure out what you got.
No doubt.
With this group.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, Matt, thank you for everything, sir.
You are more than welcome.
Rod B, appreciate the time and the knowledge.
I love it, brother, all the time.
And Travis, thanks for toughing it out, man. Best damn videographer in the podcast game.
That is true.
For Matt, for Rod, for Travis, for everybody at AM 1300 The Zone, AM1300thezone.com, where you can hear this podcast each and every week. And thanks to Matt, you get us on iTunes, TuneIn, SoundCloud, and any podcast app.
Yep, just type in Longhorn Blitz.
For the Zone family, for the Horns 24/7 family, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for downloading and listening, and we will catch you again on the next episode.
You've been listening to Longhorn Blitz with Horns 24/7.
Can you send me one-liner for National Signing Day?
Longhorn News 24/7. Visit Horns 24/7.
More National Signing Day after this.